Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you a recent reads video. So it has been about a week, yes it's been a week since I last filmed a recent reads video. In the past week I have read a total of 6 books, which goes to show how slow the beginning of my June was, because I read the same amount of books just this week that I did in the entire first 2 weeks of June. So let's jump straight in though and talk about all of those 6 books and what I thought about them. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Drop by Michael Connelly. So I think this is technically book 15 in the Harry Bosch series, but is actually like book 23 or something like that in the overall kind of like Harry Bosch universe, because basically all of Michael Connelly's books do kind of exist in the same universe, and all the characters interact kind of at some point type of a thing. So I suggest if you are interested in Michael Connelly, basically just reading his books in publication order is basically the easiest thing to do. So this one is obviously Harry Bosch. If you don't know, this is a detective series that follows Harry Bosch, who is a police detective, a homicide police detective, solving crimes and murders, etc. We're pretty deep into the series at this point. I've been following Harry Bosch for a really, really long time. I love him as a character. And in this one, we get, there's 2 crimes kind of going on that he's trying to solve. One is a current crime, and then he's actually at this stage in his career in the open unsolved unit, which is like the cold cases like area, and he's trying to solve a cold case as well. And I always really like cold cases being solved is something I always enjoy. I really enjoyed this book for the most part. I really enjoyed getting to see his interactions with a particular character and how that's going. I can't really talk about that without spoiling like earlier books in the series. We get to see him kind of dealing with how he's going to move forward with his career and what he wants to do and all of that, and I really enjoyed all of that. So yeah, generally just enjoyed it like I do most of Michael Connelly's books, and I gave that 3.5 stars. I then read Jessie's Secret Language by Anne M. Martin. This is the 16th book, I think it was, in the Babysitters Club series. Jessie's been in it for a couple of books. Jessie is one of the junior members of the Babysitters Club, but this is actually the first one we've got that's been told from Jessie's perspective herself. Jessie is the black member of the Babysitters Club. She's recently moved to Stony Brook, the town where they live, and she has experienced some racism within the town. They were one of the very few black families living in this area in Connecticut where they live. And in the main gist of the plot of this one is that the Babysitters Club have a new client, a new kid to babysit, so it's a brother and a sister, and the brother is deaf. And so Jessie becomes basically his main babysitter, and she's learning sign language so that she can communicate with him, and it talks all about that. I quite enjoyed this one. I thought, again, I'm an adult reading it, but looking at it from more of the middle grade perspective, having all this commentary in it on, you know, kids being different and needing different help and different support, and how hard it can be for a kid with a hearing disability because he can't communicate with his peers, and just all of that stuff I thought was pretty well done. For the main part, I thought it was pretty enjoyable, and I gave that one 3.5 stars as well. I then listened on audio to The Light We Lost by Jill Santopolo. This is I guess just like an adult contemporary, I guess you would call it. So basically we're following a couple, and we're following the perspective is from the female of the couple, and she's basically telling the story. So it's kind of at a certain point, and then we're hearing from her kind of going back, and she's telling the story from her perspective to the male counterpart, like in the relationship. So she's telling their story kind of to him. And so basically the gist of it is that they met actually at 9/11, and then it's basically one of those stories where for whatever reasons they've never been able to be together even though they both really love each other. That type of thing is supposed to be the gist of it. I should mention as well that this is narrated on audio by Jill Santopolo herself. So I was interested in listening to this on audio because it's a book that I'd marked as to read a while ago. I believe it was on Gabby Reed's recommendation. She'd given it a 5 star, said that it was amazing. I personally really didn't like this book. I found this book to be incredibly emotionally manipulative. I just feel like everything felt so contrived to just try to get the reader to this point. And I'm not even saying that it didn't work. To be fair, I am an incredibly easy sell when it comes to emotional things in books. I can cry at the drop of a hat. So yes, I was sold on it, but that's not really making a great statement because of who I am as a person. But it just felt incredibly manipulative. If you don't like cheating, do not read this book. And it's not even necessary, which to me is worse, it's not even necessarily cheating at parts, it's emotional cheating, like they're in relationships with other people, but are always in love with this other person and always questioning, you know, and it's just, I really don't enjoy that. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in real life, but I find it incredibly hard to relate to and read about. I didn't really like either of the two main characters. It just felt emotionally manipulative. I don't even really know what else to say. Oh, and then the ending. The ending was so abrupt, and you get no real resolution to what comes after. And I know I might sound like a hypocrite because I typically say that I don't need every thing to be tied up in my books for me to enjoy them, but in this type of story where it's all about the journey of the characters and all of this, for you then to just end it and not give us the outcome of that journey, just, it pissed me off. So I really didn't enjoy that book, and I ended up giving it only 2 stars. I then read, I've got it right here, Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. So this is my first Lauren Oliver book. It's a YA contemporary. It basically follows a girl who is going through a normal day in her life. It's Cupid's Day at her school. She goes to a party after school, and her and 3 of her friends are in a car leaving the party, and they're in a car accident, and the main character dies. We then rewind, and she lives that day over and over and over and over. And so this has got one of my favorite tropes in it, which is the Groundhog Day trope. I love seeing characters relive a day, so I was always going to be on board with this. So the main character, what is her name? I can't even remember her name. I'm terrible. I used to be so good with character names, and now as I get older, I just can't remember anyone's name, and I can see every character in here. Oh, Sam. Her name is Sam. So she's not a likable character, really. So she's like the kind of mean girl. Like the group of friends, the 4 of them are basically kind of like the plastics in Mean Girls, if you will. They're the typical kind of popular mean girls, are very cruel to other people at times. And so she's not a likable character. So that can be tough to read because you are reading from her perspective. But at the same time, it allows for a lot of character growth throughout her trying to determine what's going on, how, what she needs to do, you know, all of the different things that she tries to do, on this last day of her life. It allows for a lot of character growth, which I really enjoyed. I will say that I did think one of the problems that I had with this was that I did think there was too much forgiveness of really shitty behavior. It does touch on some topics which I appreciated, of people bullying other people because they've got their own shit going on in their lives, and it's almost like you have to point the finger this way at someone else so that no one's really looking at you and really seeing what's going on with you. And I do think there's a lot of truth in all of that, particularly when it comes to teenagers. Everyone has shit going on, especially when you're a teen. I mean, that's just true in life, but even more so when you're a teenager. Everyone's got so many emotions and so much is going on. But there was just straight out cruel behavior at times, and I just thought it was too easily oh, she's got her own stuff going on, so, you know, whatever. And I'm like, well, no, you can't be that cruel to people because you've got shit going on. So do they. That doesn't mean that they're cruel. It's just, yeah, so I thought there was a little bit too much of that. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this, and I have to say, I feel like the ending could be quite divisive. I feel like there's a lot of people who maybe wouldn't like the ending of this. I personally thought the ending of this was brilliant. I really liked the way that this ended. So in the end, I ended up giving that a 4-star rating. So I then listened on audio to I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. So Alice Oseman has a few books out now, and I've never read anything by her before, so this is my first one. I listened to it on audio. It's narrated by, forgive me if I mispronounce these names, Aisha Kala and Hugh Parmenter. So this is a YA contemporary. We're basically following two characters. We're following a girl who is a huge, massive fan of this kind of English boy band. And then we're also following one of the members of that boy band. So we're getting the two kind of perspectives. And this is basically just a look at fandoms. So there's a lot in this book that I really, really enjoyed. This has, it has such great diversity. So the main female character is Muslim, which was great. The other main character is a mixed race trans character. Loved all of that. There's so much commentary in there on, so the main thing that this looks at is fandoms, as I mentioned, but to me this was such an intelligent look at fandoms. It's a look at fandoms from both perspectives, from someone who's in the fandom and someone who's a member of what that fandom is focusing on, and how much pressure that can put on you, and all the really great things about being a part of a fandom and all of the really shit things about being a part of a fandom. And how the reasons as well. It looks at a bit about why people might become so obsessed with something, and you know, how it can be an escape from things going on in your own lives, and how much of yourself you can put into a fandom. I just thought it was a really, really intelligent look at all of those things. Will say this one has one of my pet peeves, in that I do think this book gives away too much in the synopsis, but for this type of book it didn't bother me like too much. I will say trigger warnings in this for kind of suicidal thoughts, huge trigger warnings for anxiety, and then also for alcoholism. So there are a few trigger warnings in there, but for the most part I thought this book was just, like I said, just such an intelligent look at fandoms. I thought it was really, really well done, and in the end I gave that 4 stars. The final book that I read in this past week was How I Found You by Gabriella Lepore. This is I actually like put out a jokey tweet about this. In my head, I don't know why, I thought this was YA fantasy. And then literally in the first chapter, a character rolls up in like a black Lamborghini, and I was like, what is going on? This isn't a YA fantasy, it's a YA paranormal. So it is set in our everyday world. We're basically following a female character named Rose, who is, her parents, she grew up kind of in boarding school. Her parents are not very involved in her life, and every summer she basically goes to stay with her aunt and uncle in their like country kind of house that they have, I guess you would call it. And she goes there this summer, as she usually does, and these two brothers basically turn up and kind of turn everything on its head, I guess is what you could say it's about. This was enjoyable enough, but it is pretty tropey YA. I will say that I think this was originally self-published and then was picked up by Benjamin of Tomes publishing company, of Tomes Publishing. It's pretty tropey. The writing is just kind of okay for me, nothing spectacular. But I enjoyed the romance, and for the most part it was like just easy, enjoyable reading. I will say that at the end, so there's kind of a prophecy. This book kind of deals with a prophecy, and the way that that was resolved, I just thought was ridiculous. I just, like, when it got to that part, I was just like, really? So I obviously can't say how that was resolved without completely spoiling the book, but I just thought I just didn't think that was well done. I felt very loopholey, like silliness. Anyway, so I say it was just easy, enjoyable reading, so I ended up giving that just like a 3-star rating. So that's it that I've read the past week in terms of what I'm currently reading. So I'm currently doing my reread of Faking Perfect by Rebecca Phillips. This is a book that I originally read on NetGalley quite a few years ago now. Haven't read it since, but I really enjoyed it. After I read it on NetGalley, I purchased my own copy. So I'm rereading this. This is a YA contemporary that basically deals with a girl who, as like a release for herself to deal with like emotions and things going on in her life, she has a purely sexual relationship with this kind of bad boy from her school, but it's a secret. No one can know about it, and it's purely a sexual thing. And while she's got that going on, she's always had a massive crush on one of her male friends, and then everything starts to get a bit sticky when the male friend starts to maybe return her feelings, but the bad boy who she's in the sexual relationship with also starts to maybe be insinuating that maybe he wants to take things to, you know, a more emotional level. And then the main character's just going like a lot going on in her life as well. It sounds pretty tropey, but I remember really enjoying this. I'm not too far into it. I'm about 50 pages in so far. It's only 250 pages though, so should definitely get this done this weekend. That is what I'm currently reading. That's it really. I would love to chat with you guys in the comments down below if you've read any of the books that I've read, if you've got any thoughts on them or what you guys have been reading lately, reading and loving, reading or hating. I'm just happy to talk about reading, so let's chat down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. That is all I have for this video today. Bye guys.